All right, everybody, welcome to Behind the Bar. I'm your host, Danny Johnson, where I interview my fellow dry bar comedians, get to know them a little better. And as you know, Behind the Bar is sponsored by RX Solutions. If you're looking to save 75% off your next prescription, if you're underinsured or uninsured, go to rxsolutions.online for more information. My guest today, one of my favorites. I've watched many dry bar specials, and his name is Seth Tippetts. Did I say that right, Seth?
That's exactly right. Phonetic it is. Also,
Tippetts.
RX Solutions. What a great thing for comedians. None of us are insured.
That's
Let's
right.
just keep going. I need cheap medicine, dang it. And I don't want to go to Mexico every week.
I know. You're special, tall, dark, gigante.
Gigante.
Yeah. I love it. And that I watched your special again and recently in preparation for this interview. I love it. And the gigante part of the title comes from that joke about going to Italy where you overheard, because you're 6'9", for those that don't know, right?
It's hard to tell when I'm in a podcast, but yes, I am 6'9". They put cameras this high.
Right. And it's one of my favorite jokes in your special is I think it's something like you overheard someone call you gigante in Italy, and you're like, hey, now I know the Italian word for handsome.
Italian word for handsome. You know what's the saddest thing about that? It's the namesake joke of my special, and I did not write that.
Really?
Yeah, my best friend Dan Cruz, I was telling him about, like, oh yeah, people just kept calling me gigante, and he just off the cuff was like, well, now you know the Italian word for handsome. And I was like, dang it, that's good. And I was like, can I use that? And he's like, of course. I mean, he's done open mic a couple times, but I don't think he's got any serious ambitions for being a stand-up comedian. It's a hard life.
Right. No, but that's a good. Oftentimes you kind of bounce. It's your premise, right? And someone comes up with a great line, you're like, it's mine now. Appreciate it.
Yep. That's all my friends and family are like, when's that royalty check coming? And I was like, you know what? You divide 0 by 0, it's still 0. How about that?
Right. Just give him a firm handshake. Thank you very much.
Firm hand, even that with tax, it's it comes out to be a slightly limp handshake.
I'm in Florida, as you know. Where are you based out of?
Utah. I'm in Utah, where they film Dry Bar.
That's right. So we met. People don't know that we met. That's how I met you once. You were not filming that night, but there and helping warm up the crowd.
Yes, I'm a regular warm up at the Dry Bar, which is a lot of fun because I get to meet tons of people from all over and wonderful people like yourself, and I get to see great comedy like Chusky Life. And, yeah, no, it's awesome. Plus, I get to test out jokes on a crowd that like wants really clean. So it's like, oh, hey, that didn't work.
Yeah,
now I know.
That's great. And had you already filmed your Dry Bar at the time I was filming mine, or was you after?
I think I did. I think I'd filmed before. I was season 3, I believe.
Okay, yeah. Because yours and mine are both like 40 minutes long, and the new ones are now 20, 25, right?
Yeah, they started filming 3 comics a night, and so now the intermission, there's 2 comics, then the intermission, then the third comic.
Oh wow.
Yeah, mine kind of opened the doors up a little bit because there was a lot of people who have, like, most comics will have 20, 25 clean, even if they're not a clean comic.
Right.
A lot of comics were like, I can't do 40. Right. And so it's just kind of I think it was a good move to open the door to a lot of people who want to, show their Dry Bar stuff to a larger audience like that.
It gets them more content too, right? More comedians, more content.
Yep.
I often wonder too, because I know some comedians who have done Dry Bar that are never clean, but they have that 20 minutes clean. So how does that play promotion wise outside of, for branding purposes?
I mean, for the most part, comics just do what they're gonna do, and I've noticed when I use Dry Bar as a credit, people tend to come to the show expecting it to be cleaner.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's like super offended if it's like a little PG-13 every once in a while, or if I have an opener that's PG-13.
Right.
But I mean, there were some people that came to one of my shows that you could tell they were a little adjusted by a couple jokes. They were just like, well, I thought this was going to be.
Yeah.
Well, it's not strictly Dry Bar. Now, the Dry Bar tour is always strictly Dry Bar, and so comics that are on that have to be, because that is part of the brand still.
Yeah.
But yeah.
How did you get your starting comedy? What prompted you? What pushed you?
It was a weird story. I was just sitting at home alone. I honestly had no idea stand-up comedy was even a thing. Like, my dream was I wanted to be a comedy director. I wanted to make comedy movies. And so I was just sitting at home. I was probably 16 years old. A friend of mine calls me up and says, "Oh, Seth, I'm on this date, and the conversation's not flowing. I was over eager, I was over confident, and I went one-on-one with this girl, and I'm really excited about her, but like you never shut up. Can you come on this date? Just get a girl, come on." And like it wasn't like this is happening tomorrow. He's like, "Can you be here in an hour?" And I was like, "Oh yeah." And so I like call every girl, find nobody. I end up just third wheeling it with him.
Right.
I just show up on this date that he's on, and for some reason we end up going back to her house and watched Jim Gaffigan's special, was it Beyond the Pale? Maybe it
Yeah.
was King Baby. I can't remember. But I watched that special. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, stand up comedy! Like this is modern stand up comedy." And I was like, "That's amazing." And then I looked at him. And I was like, "I could do that." I couldn't. I could not do that. So I went and did my first open mic as a 16-year-old because the club nearby did not have a liquor license at the time.
Right.
Did decently well for first time open micer. I did film it and brought my whole family, which was not a good move.
No.
You shouldn't do that. But nobody tells you that. There's no like. I mean, I'm sure if I had Googled like what not to do at your first open mic, there would have been like a plethora of things. But I didn't do that. I didn't do the research. I went to an open mic. I watched the comedy that people were doing. I came back. I did it the next week. Did pretty well, and then was just like in my head, check the box like a lot of open micers. Like I'm a comedian.
Right.
Comedian. And then just high school and stuff. I didn't do it a ton. I did, off and on, a little open mic here and there. And then I got banned from doing it in college. I played basketball at the University of Utah, and I remember I was sitting down there stretching one day, my legs in the air, and one of the assistant coaches comes up. He's like, "Hey, Tippetts, no more of this comedy crap." And I was like, "That's a good one, coach." He's like, "No, seriously, if you do stand up again, you're off the team."
Really?
Because my teammates had found some of my videos and were like quoting it during practice, and the coaches said it was distracting before the tournament or some crap. I thought it was just silly. So I couldn't do comedy at all for about 2 years. And then when the new coach came in, they cut 12 out of 16 of us, and I was like, well, I could go play basketball again somewhere else, or I could just drop out of college and become a comedian.
Right.
And that's what I did. So
have you noticed on your dry bar, I hate reading the comments, but I like reading the comments, right?
I read every comment. I shouldn't.
And I try to reply to most of them, and people are surprised, right? And there's always, for me, my personal experience, and you tell me yours, overwhelmingly positive, right? And then there's that few that are just mean. Like, I don't know why people take the time to, like, I want to let this guy, I want to insult this guy.
If you don't like something, just move it along, right?
Yeah.
Like, you see an ugly person on the street, you don't say, "Excuse me, sir, you're horrifying." Like, you just move on. No, but the internet, for some reason, people are like, "Oh, they need to know that I was not happy with this free content."
Yeah. Do you comment on those, or you just scroll by?
Well, so I've changed my philosophy over the years, but in the beginning I commented on absolutely everything, mean and nice comments, and I've gotten some amazingly nice comments, and I've gotten some like horrifying ones. And one of the ones that like stings because it's probably true is that a lot of people were like, "Is he wearing a blouse?" And the shirt I was wearing, I'm just like, it is kind of a flowy feel to it, doesn't it? And that wasn't my first pick shirt, but again, it was my first time being filmed like professionally for anything, and they were like, "You can't do vertical lines or horizontal lines because it does the moire pattern." And the two shirts I brought that I was like, "This is the shirt." They were all horizontal lines, and so I had my third choice, which I was like, "They're not going to pick this. This is an ugly shirt." And that's the one I ended up wearing in the special. And so when people are just like, "That's a blouse," I'm like, "Dang it, it probably is."
Yeah.
You're 69, your torso's got to be like it's basically like a 13-year-old's dress at that point. But
yeah. Well, for me being, a chusky overweight guy, I never wear the horizontal lines because then they look more spherical. Right. So but I don't know. I chose a purple flannel for some reason. I don't know. Like, I look back and I'm like, it looks so, like, if I'm looking to continue to get corporate gigs and stuff like that, and my best videos are from dry bar, I should have been in a jacket at least, or something nicer than a purple flannel. But some of the comments I got on mine were one about my tattoos, right?
Really?
Like, why would they allow somebody with tattoos to be on faith? Like, I guess they considered it a faith-based platform.
Does having tattoos preclude you from being religious?
Yeah, I mean, that's the assumption she was making, right? Like, what if I held the same beliefs as her and I was saved after, right? Or and then I got into it with her on Facebook. I almost said on the Facebook, like an old man. On
Oh,
the Facebook.
if you pluralize anything, or if you add a the, you can say, oh, the Twitters, oh, the internets. Yeah, that's an
Right.
old guy thing. I love it.
Yeah. And then
Sorry.
I got one, so I got two, basically, I think two negative comments that I saw, and another one was about my weight. Where in my special, I think I mentioned how much I used to weigh, and some guy was like, "Used to."
don't, don't you hate it when a comment's funny and you're just like, dang. It was
Yeah, I was like, "You can't." So I gave him I think I gave him a love emoji on the on the.
kill him with kindness. That's what I always try to be super nice. And obviously, like in the dry bar comments, there's things I'd like to say, but you got to keep it on brand and stuff.
Yeah.
And so recently, I was told by Keith Stubbs, who books it, and is the president of Dry Bar now. He was just like, you can't win fights with idiots. Like, if someone comes out and just yells something into the void, just let them die in silence. Like,
Yes.
'cause I respond to people like, here, this is my clever little take. Haha, here's a little
Yeah.
quip. And they just come back with more nonsense. And you're not
Yeah.
going to win a fan. You're not going to, and nobody else is going to read those comments and be like, nice, and then
Yeah.
go follow you. Like, it's a net zero game, or is that the right term? Zero
Yeah.
sum.
Net zero gain.
Yeah, it's and so my new philosophy is like, I will always respond to positive comments. If someone's like, oh, I love this, or oh, this, he's my favorite comedian, like, there's no reason not to respond. That's what social media is for.
Sure.
But if someone comes in there to be like, meh, like,
Yeah.
I'm a troll, he's ugly, it's like, well, yeah, you're not wrong, but
Right.
also
I found that the other dry bar fans came to my defense in both those cases, just hopping all over that person. I was like, great, you guys take it from here.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing that's crazy about the social media stuff is like the comments in general, because sentiment analysis is not at a point that like Facebook real. I mean, they might be able to tell that like something is negative if it's just like blatantly negative, but there's a lot of nuance to English, and so I think they just rate it based on comments. And so if you have a lot of controversy, like my most popular bit was, I don't think it was my funniest bit, but it was the one that had the most people going back and forth at each other, like, because I have jokes about the big and tall stores
Yep.
being mostly big. And I
Yeah.
goes, oh, it is big and tall, not big or tall. I was expecting a little bit of love because I just barely went to get some new clothes, and they don't have anything that wasn't 10 miles of extra fabric I didn't need.
Right.
So I had a bunch of jokes about the big and tall stores. People calling me a fat shamer, people saying, and reading into things in ways that I didn't even like. I was like, I didn't mean it that way. They're like, well, this is what I watched it as. Like, I
Yeah.
called myself a freak of nature, and they're like, fat people aren't freaks of nature, and it's like, yeah, I didn't say that, but
Right.
people just get angry, and
It's funny because I was going to ask you about that. Like the jump rope as a belt, right? That's in that chunk of material. And I was going to ask you because I think you took some not chances, but when you're going to that place, I think you did a great job of also tying yourself into that group of people that can't find the right fit, or like you were in with whoever you were making fun of.
right.
And then for people to like separate the two doesn't make sense to us as comedians, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is, I'd never done those jokes for as big an audience as Dry Bar, and so like obviously you show it to 10 million people, there are going to be some people who disagree
Yeah.
or think it's mean spirited, but like my goal is never to make anyone sad, or
Yeah.
like, I mean, like I later talk about eating a lonely sized bag of Doritos, which is a family size eaten by one sad man,
Yeah.
myself, and it's like, I'm not a healthy person. I'm just tall. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like I identify a lot with people who are over. I mean, I've gained my pandemic 40, I'm sure, and I'm working on losing the old pandy weight. It hasn't come off yet, but I don't know. Yeah. In retrospect, maybe the jokes were, I don't know. Every time someone says they're like awfully mean, I go back and watch them. I'm just like, I really don't see it, and maybe that's a lack of empathy on my part, but.
No, I don't think so. Like I think you did a great job of tying, like I said, tying yourself into that group Like you're with them.
Oh yeah, it's anyone on the outlier side of society. It's
Yeah.
like there's that nice bell curve of like the world is made for you. You fit everywhere. You can buy clothes, and I mean, because I'm sure people that are my friend Dan, he's fairly overweight and he has a hard time with planes, probably the same way I do.
Right.
Just like I can't stand up and I can't sit down, and he can't sit down and he can't get out. Like it's the same.
Yeah. I have a similar challenge with clothes in that. So I fluctuate with weight 20, 30 pounds every 90 days, up or down, up or down, up or down. But if I go from like here's what I find. If I go from like let's say I try on an XL shirt and it's just a little, I know once I wash it, it's not going to fit anymore. So I need a 2X. So I'll throw on a 2X in the dressing room. And now it's not wider, it's just 9 feet long. You know what I mean? It's just down to my knees. Like I'm not, 7 feet tall. I'm just wider.
Right.
I don't know why a 2X or an XL from a large is not this way. They're like, oh, I guess he's really tall.
Well, that's the thing is like that I've started to see more specifically like XLTs and double XLTs,
Uh,
T being tall, and I think that's a good differentiator because yeah, I mean there's a lot of different body types, and I mean I feel like the existing numbering of shirts is kind of like I don't know, not granular enough, especially because like it just depends on the store you buy it from. Sometimes like this shirt's an XLT and it's way too wide, um,
uh,
which is I was just like I always wear an XLT for the most part, and I bought this and it's like oh hey look I need to get this tailored. Like
yeah, that's
I think
interesting.
China. I bought something from China once, and I was a quadruple XL or maybe a quintuple XL because they have that many sizes, and I think Chinese people are just a lot smaller
Yeah.
than us Americans. America,
I
we
don't
have
know that I've ever met an overweight Asian person.
yeah. I don't know. I think the rest of the world might just be because when I went to Italy, I was the only person there that I think was above like 6 foot, maybe.
Yeah.
Like I was just like, there's a reason people were calling me Il Gigante. It's because they probably hadn't seen someone that big in certain parts of that country.
It's because they're all
I saw
smoking.
one guy that was my height, and then I look at his backpack and he's got an American flag on it. I was like, ah, there you
Well,
go, there you go.
it's because they're all smoking over there. You mentioned that in your special that everyone smokes all the time, and that's
That was weird, and they still seemed healthier than me, like
right.
100%, because they were riding a bike smoking. I'm like, I wouldn't ride a bike, but I also wouldn't smoke. So,
Yeah.
take some más o menos. I don't know. Take some, leave some.
There's a lot of foods banned in Europe that we just enjoy here because so they eat smaller portion sizes, right? Over in Europe, and they smoke and the Gatorade's banned in like 15 countries. I don't know
Is it really?
because it has stuff in it that also used in laundry detergent or something like that.
Well, today I learned I
Yeah,
was
right.
this many years old when I learned that Gatorade has a cleaning effect on my body. That it's like tech or Chevron with Techron, right? You gotta lube it up on the inside every once in a while.
Right, right. That the lonely size Dorito bags, I had it jotted down. That was another one of my favorite lines in your act there. Well, I just picture you on a couch, just it should be lonely size because I finished it myself or something like
Just sobbing, just like, wow, these are getting saltier. It's crazy the amount of sodium they put in these Doritos. Yeah, I'll take another bag.
that. Well, when you open it up, it's a quarter full anyway, so technically it's not a whole bag,
It
right?
should be marketed as a pillow, really. It's
Right. So I noticed you cut your hair. So when I met you, when I filmed my special, and even in your special, you had the I call it the Thor locks. You had a
I'll
lock
take
of
it.
hair.
Yeah, no,
I'm done with it.
I well, I had the yeah. Thor is a much more complimentary. I was thinking it was more Weird Al, which is fine. I also love Weird Al, but he's not as sexy
Right.
as the Hemsworths. But yeah, no, I cut my hair. I've cut it a couple times. I actually grew it all the way back out
Huh.
uh, again once. But yeah, I don't know. I got divorced actually during the pandemic. I have
Oh,
lots
sorry,
of jokes
man.
about that now. Oh no, it's hilarious. It's great for my career. You know, pain plus time equals comedy, and boy, was I in pain. And has it been enough time? Probably not. But I've written jokes, and they're killing. They're killing me on the inside. Every one of them.
Right, right. Yeah. I know that feeling. I've been divorced for a while now, and There was a portion of me that was like, wow, I'm probably gonna get like 15 minutes out of this. It's 15 minutes of material.
I've had more than one like influential comedy person be like, "You've gotten a lot funnier since you've
Ah,
been divorced." So, I mean, that's probably the best thing that could have happened to you for your career. And it's like, well, I'll take it. Like,
that's right. Just bury the pain behind the jokes. That's what it's
that's
all about.
oh yeah, and that's one of the reasons I cut my hair. I got to get back in the dating game. I can't have people going out with Shaggy, with Weird Al. Although Thor, I don't know. It's hard to keep up that much hair. I have a lot more respect for what the ladies do with that much hair after having to do it myself. Like just
Yeah,
expensive products, and you can't just go with the cheap conditioner crap shampoo
yeah,
anymore. Um, and I had no idea when I had short hair because you're just like with a guy length of hair, you're like, I don't know, toss some Febreze on it, like.
yeah, yeah. I've been bald for a long time, but I used to have a nice locks. And after my divorce, um, my ex-wife used to take my son to the barbershop. I never took him. It's just something she did. So now that he was with me, um, it was my responsibility. So he needed a haircut. And I remember going into the hair salon or whatever haircut place. And I hadn't been in one in like 20 years. I felt lost. I was like, I don't know how this works. What do we do? Do I like
Am I allowed in here? Do I have a membership
I
card?
don't I don't
Free
know
clip?
I don't know what to do. They're like, who's the appointment for? And I'm standing there. I'm like, well, it's not for
What a dumb question. How
right.
dare you?
It's for the boy with the locks of the mop on his head. So it went fine, but now it was just a weird experience. Like I was like, I realized I hadn't been in there in like 15, 20 years inside of a shop like that.
Yeah, that would be an adjustment. I when I had the long hair, I'd get my hair cut like once every 3 years, and it was always like, yeah, I'll leave a big tip because like I'm not coming back. But then I realized that you should probably thin it because if you just have a mane, it's less
Right.
maintainable, less good. Speaking of stupid questions, I took a. Have you ever been like stopped in a movie theater to like watch movie trailers?
Have I ever been stalked?
Stopped. Like
Oh
someone said,
no.
"Hey, excuse me, sir, can you watch this movie trailer? We'll give
No,
you
no,
a
no.
gift card." Well, they did that because apparently I hit the demographic of dumb white male, and I walked in and I had to answer all these stupid questions about. I watched a movie trailer for hasn't been released with a George Clooney something something. One of the questions was, "Is George Clooney handsome?" Who who is that helping? What marketing department's like, we knew it. We knew it. I called it. Johnson said it wasn't right, but I knew George Clooney was handsome. Anyway, that was an aside for no reason. So
That's hilarious. So it was like it was an impromptu focus group kind of thing.
yeah, no, they just like we were going to see a movie. It was I was actually up doing a show in Idaho, and yeah, like we went to see the new Thor movie, and yeah, they just stopped our entire group and was like, "Hey, you guys, you wanna watch a trailer?" And I made it all the way through because I wanted that $5. I was gonna
Right.
get you that $5. The other comics I was with, they were just like they did like 10 questions, like, "How long is this?" I'm out, and they just bailed. I was just like, "No, no, no, sunken cost fallacy. I'm in,
Yeah.
baby." And the
You're
questions
you're
just kept getting dumber.
you're
Like,
too invested in it, and you just got to see it through. I did a survey in a mall once in college for a free 6 pack of beer.
they know how to get college kids. If that's the well, we got one prize. It's either the amount of money that you could buy a 6 pack of beer or a 6 pack of beer.
Yeah, they literally were like, "Hey, do you want to do a survey for a 6 pack of beer?" I'm like, "Yeah," and they're like, "You don't want to know what it's about?" No.
Don't care.
So it was literally like and the I forget what kind of beer it was, but the 6 pack holder was all white, like so it was non-branded or whatever. And I just walked out of the mall with like a 6 pack in college.
Did
So
they
stupid.
card you though? No.
But so speaking of the divorce and writing new material, I'm very curious when I talk to my fellow comedians what their writing process is. So do you dedicate time? Do you kind of think of an idea and jot it down and come back to it later? Like, do you have a process at all?
I'd like to get more disciplined about it, and I know that like the times I have sat down and been like, "All right, writing time," have usually been very fruitful. I typically don't the my if you could call it a process, I'll just live my life and think of something funny or talk. Because I think Steve, Steve Solberg.
I
He's a
don't know.
Utah comic. He's got a couple dry bar specials, I think. Um, but I think he told me once, he's like, the first time you tell a story, the first time you tell a joke or a bit, it's probably to a group of friends, and if they're like, you want to be able to recreate that with strangers.
Yeah,
If the first time you tell a joke, it's the funniest, and then it gets less funny, and you have to find your way back. That probably means it's a good bit, because it's going to be genuine to you, authentic to you, because it's probably the way you told it to your buddies. Um, and so a lot of times, just hanging out with friends, we'll be chatting and going back and forth and complaining about stupid things like George Clooney being handsome, and they'll be like, oh, hey, you know what? That's a good bit. And sometimes it's not like I've done it enough with my friends that a lot of times if they're laughing really hard, and they've developed a sense for like what is too contextual, because like certain things you're just never going to be able to bring to stage. You can't go on stage. Oh, you had to be there. Like that doesn't,
yeah,
But they have a sense for it now. We're like, hey, you should write that down because that's really funny.
yeah,
And so sometimes they'll remind me. Sometimes I'll remind myself. And yeah, I'll write down like the premise of it, and then come back to it later and either flesh it out sitting down or flesh it out on stage.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, I mean it's worked okay. I think I could be writing a lot more if I had dedicated more time to it. Um,
I think
but
I
that's fine.
do. I think I do something similar, right? So I jot down ideas, come back to it later. It's hard for me to dedicate. It's not hard, but dedicating time to it just seems like I'm forcing it. Um, the only time I think I've dedicated time, sometimes I'll do this morning routine where I stream of conscious writing. So the first thing I do when I wake up, splash some water on my face, and then sit right back down and write for 15 to 30 minutes, just whatever I'm thinking, whatever comes out of my brain.
Mhm.
And it's usually 90% garbage. And I've gotten a few bits out of that. And that was a very therapeutic and helped with comedy. But for me to say I'm going to write from 3 to 4 today, I'm essentially just going over previous notes on back of napkins or little sticky pads that I've thought of throughout the day.
Yeah, and I don't think I've ever sat down and written premises. I've definitely punched up stuff. I think that's
Yeah.
probably where I get the most benefit from like sitting down and writing is just like, oh hey, I thought of another line. Something I really liked. So Gary Goldman he had those tweets he did for the year that
Mhm.
all the tips about comedy, and something he had a lot of awesome stuff he said. But one of the things I really liked was he said have a spare parts drawer or notebook or whatever, where it's like, this is funny. Like you have a funny word, a funny phrase, a funny situation, but you have no idea where it would go, and it's not like a premise on its own. It's not a bit, and you're just like, eh. And he said, like, keep those, because a lot of times I'll just throw them away and be like, well, I'll remember it. I won't. So
Right.
now I have my spare parts note, and he said, like, read that once a month or something when you're writing, because you might be like, it might just trigger, oh, hey, this will go great with bit number 5, because of course you number your bits. That's how everyone remembers.
Yes. Right. How did you select the material for your dry bar special? Were you obviously you were doing the material already, at clubs or wherever. But did you have a preference? Did you kind of I want to do this on the special, but I really shouldn't? Or like what was your process on that?
uh, this is going to be too much of a peek behind the curtain. I was definitely stretching a little bit, and I think some
Okay.
people could tell. 40 minutes clean. I probably had a half hour, like a confident half hour, and so there was definitely 10 minutes of that material that was either incredibly new, or I shouldn't have done it, or
Right.
like a lot of people filming now with the 20-minute ones, like that seems like a breeze to me, because it's, I mean, not a breeze, but like you'd have the opposite problem of, instead of trying to stretch,
Right.
like I was in that situation. It's oh, let's pare it down, which I think is a lot better problem to have. It's like, which joke is better? Like let me do this one or this one. Like a lot of the Italy stuff, like the smoking thing,
Right.
uh, was a month old, and
Wow.
um, and then like so one of my biggest regrets, um, was I put a political joke in the week of. I think I had thought of it, like I maybe even thought of it in the shower the day I recorded.
Right.
And it was just a quick throwaway line, just a tag. You could replace it with any politician because it wasn't like specifically about them.
Right.
Um, but it was in my joke about taking my friend's kid to the taxidermy museum. It's like, oh, conversation about mortality. Oh, only bad things die. Well, what did Grandpa do? He probably voted for Trump. That was my whole joke,
Yeah.
and I got flambéed for that online, like because of course people who love Trump really love Trump, and
Yeah.
they're all about it. And I had people that were like, and thankfully it was fairly late in my special. I think it was 20 something minute or 29 minutes in maybe.
Right.
And so I'd have people like, you were hilarious. I absolutely loved you. And then you made fun of our president.
Right.
Unfollow, unsubscribe. I hate you. And it's like, whoa. And it was just a one line. And so if I could go back and change anything about the special, like
Right.
obviously there's newer material that I love a lot more than the stuff I did, but I would remove that line because it just caused like unnecessary hate.
Yeah.
And I just, again, it was a throwaway. I didn't think like, oh yeah, I'm not a political comedian. I'm not gonna change anybody's
Right.
mind.
Yeah.
But that one line was just like, I lost a lot of fans.
I mean, you could, yeah. I mean, it was just a controversial person that you had to pick to make that joke work, right? So it's not directed
Right.
politically at anybody.
Again, well, I could have said Hillary.
Right.
Easily. And I had a lot of people in the comments like, you do a lot better if you said Hillary. And it's like, yeah, in certain parts of the country. And that's the
No.
thing that I've learned is like, as I've been touring more, it's like, sometimes you cater some things a little bit. Like I have a bunch of COVID jokes, and I have COVID jokes that work in blue places, and I have COVID jokes that work in red places, and I have some that work in
Yeah.
both. And it's mostly tags. And so you just kind of swap things out a little bit, or you change the wording depending on where you're at because you have to be aware of the political climate. And the weirdest place I performed was somewhere in Ohio that was like the swingest state I've ever been. And so half the crowd agreed and half the crowd didn't with
Right.
any direction I went. I kept trying to like test it and be like, okay, so let's go. Oh no. Okay, let's go. Nope, never mind. And so that one was a little weird. But for the most part, people are like the places you perform are there'll be a majority of some type of idea.
Yeah. And I wonder, I don't know if you subconsciously or consciously thought about it like this, but just the word Trump is funnier than Hillary for comedic purposes. The T and the P are funnier than the H and the Y, which is why Kentucky's funnier than Iowa, right? So it's
no, I this must have been subconscious, but yeah, it's and people again, like I'm not changing anyone's minds. I'm not out here like telling people they're wrong. I mean, I guess in that joke, I'm like, well, he probably. But the thing is like an older white guy probably did vote for Trump. Like,
right.
That's the truth in the comedy to me. It didn't matter. I probably shouldn't have even told this story. This is again a peek behind the curtain of the way I thought and the backlash I got. Since then, I've tried really hard to play both sides equally. Like if I had a Trump line, I should have had a Hillary line. Or I don't think Biden was a thing back then.
Right.
But, maybe he was. I can't remember. And so yeah, now I mean I have a couple of political jokes, or not even joke. I mean I do an impression of Trump like everybody does, where I talk about like being afraid of nukes, and it's like, oh, I'm afraid of nukes from Russia. That's scary. And it's like, oh, I guess I should have been scared for a lot longer because we've had 2 geriatric old geezers in the White House in a row, and we're still here. You know, that could have ended a long time ago. It's like, I'm sorry, nukes, you're fired.
Right.
It's like, no. And then I make fun of Biden. It's like, he doesn't know where he is. He doesn't know where he is half the time. You know, it's all it's going to take is he wakes up one morning without his cup of Joe. Joe doesn't get his Joe. And he goes, oh, this is weird. This is malarkey. I don't remember having to push or turn 2 keys to call my son Hunter. It's like, no. So I try again. Like I think if you make fun of everybody, the people who are offended at that point are maybe just stupid. Because
and especially if you're in an environment where the crowd's drinking alcohol, they don't kind of get the point of we're trying to make you laugh, regardless of what side.
Yeah, nobody wants to piss people off. I mean, I guess there's probably comedians out there. I shouldn't say all comedians,
right?
But I got in this to create joy. I don't know if everyone did, and you can't. I don't think it's funny if you don't ruffle the feathers a little bit.
Yeah.
If you just went up there and was like, I believe each candidate has their own values. That's not funny. No, maybe it's satire, but
yeah. I watched Bill Burr's latest Netflix special, that was live at the Red Rocks, and he plays both sides, right? And it's funny how he yells at the audience when they think he's pandering. So like he'll set up a joke. He set up a joke in his special, like something about every study done in the history about whether men or women are smarter, women always come out in this study as smarter. And then of course all the women in the crowd start cheering and clapping. He's like, stop getting in the trunk. For Pete's sake. You know where I'm going with it, because he's playing both sides of that comment. He's like, his point was these audiences like, oh yeah, we're smart, and I don't think the crowds get it, or some crowds don't get it.
Yeah, and it's a lot of variables. That's one of the reasons I love comedy. Is just like you can never have the same crowd. You can have the same people in the same club, but if it's a different day, it's going to be a different crowd because people had a different life experience that day, or a year later you get the same people. It's like, well, they've lived a whole year.
Yeah.
They have a new perspective on lots of stuff, and yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting that just the climate of comedy and how it's changing. Did you see the Jon Stewart's?
Mark Twain.
Yeah,
It's great.
I really like that because it did take a lot of the onus off of crowds, which I think is fair because like comedians shouldn't blame crowds ever. Like obviously you're gonna have bad crowds, but like in terms of just like the audience in general as an abstract concept, if they're
Yeah.
not laughing, it's your fault. If it's like consistently across shows and venues and localities, because I mean everyone has a bad show, and you're like, well, maybe the crowd just didn't like me. That's fair, but if like every crowd doesn't like you, it's because what you're doing is wrong. I mean, you see the people who haven't updated their act for, since the '80s. Sometimes they'll see an impressionist, and it's like, really, you're still doing Reagan? Like,
Yeah.
oh, these kids today. It's like it's not these kids today. You need like,
Yeah.
I mean, it is these kids today. It's kind of it's a symbiosis with the comedians in the crowd. I think Jon Stewart and Trevor Noah were talking about how, like the crowd is like our jokes are the sheet music, but the crowd's the instrument.
Yeah.
And you play a crowd, and it's like, well, this is out of tune. It's like, well, good. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's like,
Yeah. Yeah, you can see you can always identify the comedians who don't write. And in all fairness, we all wish we could write more and change our material more, right? But the
oh,
ones that never do, that we just referenced, is like callbacks are from 20 years ago. So it's not even like impressions are obvious, right? But they'll do a callback to, I don't know, an oil strike in 1971 or something like.
yeah, and it's one of the reasons I haven't written a lot of topical stuff. Like I think it'd be fun, and I've definitely written topical jokes. Like I remember I did like 5 minutes that just crushed. There was a solar eclipse that was visible in Idaho, like perfect totality in Idaho. And so like a lot of Utahns went up and saw the solar eclipse, and we had a pretty decent solar eclipse from where we were. And so I wrote like 5 minutes of solar eclipse jokes, and they killed. And I went to the club owner and was like, "Hey, what do you think about those? Do you think I should add those to the act?" He's like, "People won't remember this next week, and they won't care anymore." You're like, "Hey, you guys remember that solar eclipse?" And it's like, no, not really.
So you just referred to Utah people as Utahns?
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
Yep. Utahns.
It's not something you made up. That's a known.
That's what they call them on the news.
Huh.
9 out of 10 Utahns believe. Yeah.
I need to make it back out there. I haven't been there since I filmed my special.
Not much has changed.
Right. It was beautiful. I had to buy a winter jacket to go out there because I don't know what, it was January. I didn't own a winter jacket. I'm in Florida. It's still hanging. It's dust. There's dust on the shoulder.
You hang it up in like one of those glass cases like Michael Jordan's jerseys. You're just
right.
like, that was my dry bar jacket, actually. That was
Yeah, I had a winter hat, walking around that town surrounded by the mountains. It was a nice little town.
Provo is very pretty, and the people are too nice. They're too nice.
It really was. It was I don't know. I've been in Florida for a long time now, but I grew up in New York. So Utah was very pleasant. There wasn't anybody that I passed that didn't say hello or make eye contact. I was like, I feel like this is like a sitcom or something.
Right. That's the way I felt the first time I went down. Because I grew up in northern Utah, and the first time I went to Provo, it was like nicer than like people in northern Utah. I think are kind of normal people. I mean, normal relative to Utah. But yeah, people in Provo, I went down there and I got out of my car. I was out of my car for less than 30 seconds. Some weirdo on roller skates rolls up. He's like, "Hey man, you here for the movie night?" And I was like, "Who are you? Stop talking to me," because I'm not used to that level of just like kindness to strangers. And I'm sure, New York and even Florida, you're just like, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
Southern hospitality is a thing, but like Provo hospitality is a little creepy. I don't know.
Yeah.
Come over for dinner. I don't know your last name. Like, let's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. I even had some audience members like, and I think this was just awkwardness talking to them after the second set, because you filmed two, as you know, was like, I'd love to come back out here. I'd love to look at, even buying a property out there or something. I was just kind of making conversation. They're like, "Oh yeah, you can come out here. You can stay with us if you want, and you don't have to pay for a hotel." And I'm like, I don't,
Right. That's how you end up in a basement. That's how you end up in a dungeon. I don't know. Yeah, and that's the thing is like people are genuinely that nice for the most part, which is yeah, it can be off-putting
Yeah.
for someone like me who's a cynic.
The person that I filmed with, I don't think their dry bar comedy ever got published. Have you seen many of those where it just doesn't ever get published for whatever reason?
They do have. I mean, they have a backlog of. It's just. I don't know who makes those decisions, but they have like a bunch in the can that they're just
Yeah.
working through. And some people like mine. It took about 9 months to get released,
Yeah.
and I was like around, so like they knew it wasn't like I was someone they'd never met. I was like popping like, "Hey, how's that special coming?" And they're like, "Oh, we're working on it, Seth." And
Yeah.
so like that definitely happens. And I know I have friends, even Utah comics that their special didn't get released for like 5 years, and I'm glad they get out eventually. But I also like understand how painful that must be because I even look at my special, which I think was released in I can't remember 2019 maybe.
Okay.
Um, and I mean that was 3 years ago, and I look at the material I had and my stage presence and just things, and I was like, oh man,
Yeah,
that's because we're our biggest critics, I think,
for
despite how
sure.
mean the comments can be, and so I can't even imagine having something released and the world being like, this is the best this guy has to offer. You're like, that was 5 years ago. I'm so much, but don't judge me on this.
Yeah.
Even though it's that's the thing, like most people can't tell, most people don't care, most people are like, that was hilarious. Like I still jokes I hate, jokes I hate. I'll have people be like, that's my favorite line. This is the favoriteest thing I've ever seen
Yeah.
on Dry Bar. And I was like, that one, really? And then because one person said they liked it, it's kind of like when you wear a new piece of clothes and you get a compliment and it becomes like your favorite shirt.
Right.
Like you had one person say, oh, I love that joke. And you're like, you know what? It's in the act forever. I'm never going to retire it because
Yeah.
that one person said it was their favorite.
Yeah.
Even if it never works. I have tons of those lines where I'm just like, oh, yeah. I think it's funny, or someone else told me it was funny that I respect, and I'll just keep selling it, and it just never clicks.
Yeah. It's it and it was the most nerve-wracking for me. I mean, because once this, if you do a show at a club or a private event and you mess up, you do something wrong, no one remembers, it's just gone. But you're filming this and millions of people are going to watch it. And more so, and on top of that, you have almost no creative control. You can they give you something to put notes on, edit this, but ultimately Dry Bar makes the decision on what gets filmed. So
Right.
I
And a
had
lot of
this.
times, if it's 9 months later, or for if it's however long, like they don't have the context anymore, and like maybe you
Yeah.
don't either, and they're watching it with brand new eyes. They probably weren't even at the show. A lot of the editors,
Yeah.
and I think they do a good job, and I was happy with the way it came out. But I do remember like some notes I put that they just ignored, and I was like, well, I guess I was wrong because I liked my second show a lot more, just in terms of my performance.
Yeah.
But they said the crowd response was better in the first show, so they took the majority from the first show, even though I did a lot more, hair flips, which believe me, the comment people were like, stop touching your hair. They let me know. They let me know. Yeah, it's interesting. And yeah, having something permanent is so stressful. I just about had a panic attack. Do you ever go down one of those like water slides face first?
Yeah.
That was like, and so every time I go down one of those, it's always like, it's
I lose your audio there.
testing.
There we go. Well, you're back.
I'm back. So you go down the water slide head first, and my first thought's always, I shouldn't have done this. There's no,
Yeah.
but you can't get out. You're like, I've made decisions in my life that led me to going down this water slide face first, and I hope I survive. But if I don't, I guess I had a good run. That was the amount of panic I had when they announced my name when I first went up.
For
It's just
sure.
like it was like I should run out the door right now. They're like SethTippetts, and I was like, well, crap. I guess here I go dying.
Yeah.
I hope I survive. And it turned out great, and the crowds were great. But yeah, this was my first time being like having a special filmed, and it was just
Yeah.
there's no take backsies. I don't know of any comics that have. There's been a handful who after it's gone out have said like, can you take this down? And Dry Bar, they're definitely comedians first, and so they have, even though they don't have to, they've taken down. Someone had like a career change or their mom. I can't remember. There are specific situations where they just didn't want that content out there anymore.
Wow. I didn't even
But for
think
the
of that.
most part, like, yeah, it's out there, and once it's out there, you can't really put it back in the bottle, and you're just like, well, I hope people like me.
Yeah. I told I was getting in the makeup chair before the special. I said, I'm a guy that sweats on stage. I sweat in general, but on stage, my
Also on
glasses,
stage.
yeah, my glasses fog up. She's like, and she goes, don't worry, I'll take care of that. Did some sort of special spray and mist and thing, and it worked. But the rest of my body, neck down, luckily I was wearing a t-shirt and the flannel was just because it's so darn nerve-wracking. Like you said, you're
Oh yeah.
backstage, you're like, I don't know if I can do, I don't know. Danny Johnson. I'm like, oh God.
Just pacing. Well, that's the thing is like I'm not a big sweater on stage. I sweat to death on the Dry Bar filming, and maybe there was more lights because they definitely crank up
Yeah.
the lights more than a typical club show. Um, but yeah, it's
There's so much makeup on my face. If when I watched my special back, whenever I had an itch, I would use my pinky nail, like to just scratch it ever so lightly, because I was afraid if I did that, it would just be this like tan smear.
it's like just oh, what's the big? Just got like teardrops. I was like, well, he looks sad. Why does he look so sad? That's his makeup. His makeup is sad. He made his makeup incredibly.
So, do you do you do comedy clubs, right? So I know there's Wise Guys in there's two of them, right? In
Actually, four now. There's
four.
why yeah there's the Gateway, which is in Salt Lake City Central, and then there's Jordan Landing, which is kind of in the metropolitan area of Salt Lake, so South Jordan, and then Ogden, which was I think the original Wise Guys, and then he just opened one in Vegas.
Wow.
There's a Wise Guys Comedy Club in Vegas. I've not made it down there because I was stupid and bought an electric car, and so that does not make it to Vegas. So I'd have to fly, and I think opening for somebody and making $25 might not be worth the flight. But
Right, right, right.
someday I'll make it down to Vegas. But
So
I've heard
I
it's a great
assume
show.
other venues, right? Have you done private shows, corporate gigs, church gigs, stuff like that?
I have not done a church gig. Maybe they don't want an atheist. I don't know. I but no one's asked me to do church gigs. I don't know. It's
No, I
yeah.
mean I've seen all kinds of comics do, whatever venue will pay them. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, no, I'll take the money. Believe me, I would take any religion's money. I mean, maybe that's too broad a statement.
Yeah, right. There's a lot of different religions
There's
out
a lot of religions, and I'm not doing a show for the Westboro Baptist. I don't think I'm going to do it. I don't
there.
think.
What are all these bikers in my way for? Jeez, I'm just trying to get to my gig.
um, yeah, I've done a fair amount of corporate stuff. Was thinking about well, I didn't realize you could just sign up for the college the NACA thing.
Hmm.
I think I'm gonna try to get in the college circuit next April when the signups are.
Yeah, there's like an audition process, I think, right? There's a
Yeah, it's like a
showcase.
showcase. So that's on the books to try to do a little bit more of that. Um, yeah, I've done a handful of things. It's but mostly comedy clubs.
That's good,
And
man.
yeah,
Like I said, I enjoyed meeting you, and you made me feel more comfortable. I mean, you were at home there in your environment, and not only, and you killed it opening up the show. And I forget what order I went, whether I went first or second for both shows, but regardless, you did a fantastic job. And um,
Well, I'm glad I made you feel more comfortable because I think it helps that I've been through that experience. And it's like, listen, it's gonna be fun.
Right, right. And it is intimidating because I think there was rolling cameras too in the back of the filming, and they're just going back and forth. And
They got the slider in the back, and they got a couple of roamers for the audience shots. They got one that's up on. Maybe they use 5 or 6 cameras now. And yeah, I mean, for someone like me who at the time had never been filmed ever, like I think I had like one of those crappy little camcorders for like some comedy festival.
right.
Um, since then, I've actually during the pandemic I bought a bunch of camera equipment and decided to film literally every set,
That's a good
which
idea.
I think it's helped a lot. Just even if I don't post this stuff, it's like, in terms of seeing my performance, because I think that's what opened my eyes up watching my dry bar thing. It's like, oh, is that how I look on stage? Oh, why do I do that? I should
Yeah.
stop. It's kind of like watching, like if you ever, football or basketball, watching game film. You're just like, oh, okay, this could have been better. Oh, I didn't handle that well. Let's try this better next show. And yeah, I mean, probably maybe not more so than writing, but equal to writing. I think if anyone wants comedy advice, I don't know who your audience is.
Yeah.
I guess we'll find out. But if comedians are out there, definitely film yourself. Just even with a crappy little GoPro, because I think that's getting divorced and filming myself. Those are the two things really set the old comedy career on overdrive.
Did you find yourself watching yourself identifying like mannerisms or habits? Like
Oh yeah, I got I
I
got, I got
I
all
play
kinds.
with the microphone stand. Like I'll have the microphone here and I'm fiddling around.
Yeah, I'll put 4 fingers in a pocket, and so I'll just have my thumb out, which always looks weird. I hate that. I do play with my hair a lot. I try not to, but like there's only so much product can do once you get a little hot.
Right.
One of the things I really hate, and I can tell, I know exactly when I do it. If it's a joke I don't believe in yet, like it's not like A-list material yet, I'll say like at the end of a punchline. So I'll
Uh,
just be like, oh, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a punchline off the top of my head, but some joke I'm not that like, to kind of like bridge it to the next thing if it doesn't get a laugh or something. So I can just
yeah.
like continue the sentence. It's just a weird tick, and I'll say like, and it's always like a mumbly, like grunty like, and I hate it. And I'll do it anytime it's new material. There'll be a like after it, and so I've tried really hard to like tone that down a little bit.
Yeah.
It's hard to because you want it to be conversational still and read as authentic, so because it can't be like scripted to the point that every word is the same. I guess some comics are good at that, but at the same time you don't want to sound like you're stuttering or nervous or whatever. It's a difficult problem that I don't think I've cracked yet.
Yeah. I mean, it's something it takes could take years sometimes it's so subconscious that it's a comfort. You're trying to find a safe space up there, make you feel better subconsciously. But
I was even considering getting like a speech pathologist involved and just be like, hey, train me to not do these handful of things I've noticed because I hate all of them and I think it like discounts my work.
yeah,
Do I have the money for that?
I used to be a member of Toastmasters. Have you ever heard of that group? It's
No, but I assume there's a lot of butter involved. Hey,
it's
dude, come on. Oh no, that's the wrong one. There we go.
hey now. It's sort of a business professionals public speaking forum, and they teach you about public speaking. And eventually, I just decided to exit it because I've been doing comedy for so long. But the biggest feedback was I talk with my hands a lot.
Is that not
Well,
good? I thought people like to talk with their hands.
yes, I'm like, but
Being
this was
Italian.
more. Yeah, it was more like straight lace. This spreadsheet does blah, blah, blah,
So
and
they
I
don't
was,
want you to talk with your hands because they're doing corporate presentations or whatever. That seems weird. I feel like it would help with even corporate stuff, like having some motion to it.
yeah, no, it was no good.
Not the
But,
Toastmasters.
darn you, Toastmasters. But look, I've enjoyed our conversation today. I'm a fan. I loved watching your special again. I look forward to the next one, and maybe we can work together in the future.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I believe I am filming in October. I think I'm doing
You're
the first.
doing a second one?
I think it's not on the books quite yet, but
Okay,
I've heard the whisperings. I've heard the rumblings. It should happen. So,
that's
uh,
fantastic, man. Good for you.
yeah, I'm excited. And this is going to be the pruning version, which is going to be a lot nicer of just like taking the hour and saying, okay, what 25 do I want to put out there?
Yeah.
Although I guess there's been a couple comics come through and do the 25. They'll do a completely separate 25, and
Oh,
so
wow.
or maybe was it Hewlett? What's the Jason Hewlett? I
Okay.
think did enough material that they were able to edit 2 specials from it.
Wow.
Which, I mean, imagine not running with the tightrope like that, where you're like, yeah, that first one, golden. All right, we're gonna do something different the second show. Hopefully, it's also golden, and then they're both great, and you're just like, all right, you got 2 specials
Wow.
for the price of one.
Good for him. Well, good luck with it, and keep putting in the work. A lot of things you said today are music to fellow comedians' ears. Recording, watching, listening, writing, and continuing the work. But it's your website is what? SethTippetts.com for all things Seth Tippetts.
That's right. Tippetts, 2 P's, 2 T's, like toilet paper. There should be a better mnemonic, but I haven't found one.
Right.
If you find a better mnemonic, leave a comment. That would be a helpful comment. Don't tell me I'm ugly. Just tell me, oh, look at this guy with his big forehead. Give me a mnemonic for Tippetts, or I should just get a stage name. I'm going to go by SethTippetts.
Right.
That was on my state ring in high school. That was my nickname, Tipsy.
There's too many comedians with nicknames. It's just like Big T,
Big Daddy,
Little Sean, and I don't know.
Always a size involved with how come there's no medium Seth? How about that? There was
right. Regular Danny.
Regular Danny. Here, welcome to the stage. See, that does just sounds regular Danny. It's like, why is he regular? Shouldn't we be impressed here?
Right.
He's got a Netflix special, Regular Danny on Netflix. Really? Regular Danny?
Yeah, it's pretty much average. This is what you're getting, folks. Awesome, man. Well, it was a pleasure. I hope to talk to you soon. Anytime, and hopefully let's do this again, and hope our paths cross. But until next time, brother.
Sounds good. Thanks.
See you later, bud.